proper, allow me to just briefly go through some house rules during this event. We will be flashing it in your screens now. Okay, so some house rules. During the meeting, may we ask everyone to please put your device microphones on mute, especially when you're not speaking or called to speak. Also, if we are called to speak or we are speaking, we'd like to remind everyone to speak slowly for our interpreters. Yeah, and if you don't want to interrupt the speaker's flow and you feel called to add inputs, you may leave your comments or positive feedback in the chat. This is to help in connectivity issues for those with slow bandwidth. Please make use of the raise your hand feature if you want to speak so that we may call on you. And if you have slow bandwidth, we recommend closing any other program or application on your computer that are slowing down your internet connection. So this meeting includes simultaneous interpretations. The interpretation feature and button can be found in the menu at the bottom of your screen. You may need to maximize your Zoom window for this. So we have English, Spanish, Nepali, and Bahasa. And also we have Thai. It's available in the Korean channel. So for any other technical support, you may also message us. We're found in the participants as tech. At the end of the program, we're taking this opportunity to take a group picture with everyone with the calls which our tech will share in the chat now. You may access these and use them as your placard or as your virtual backgrounds for later. So I'd like to thank everyone who has been with us or who's with us right now. Thank you so much. We have more than 60 people attending our Zoom and much more as we are live on Facebook now. So you may share and share it with your friends and share it on your organization's pages so we may reach more people. So yeah, thank you once again for everyone who's here. To formally open our activity today, we would like to share a recording of the opening remarks delivered by Van Ul of the Cambodian Youth Network Association and the Youth for Food Sovereignty.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us today. My name is Van Ol from the Youth for Food Sovereignty, and welcome to the Rural Youth State Summit, a panel discussion on neoliberal food system and the rural youth situation. The Youth for Food Sovereignty is a global alliance of rural youth activists and advocates committed to defend the people's collective rights to land and life. This event is being held as part of the Global People's Summit for Just, Equitable, Healthy, and Sustainable Food System, which will happen on 21st to 23rd September 2021. Today's activity aims to present to the wider public the youth perspective on national struggle for land, genuinely sustainable food system, and anti-imperialist struggle in the Global South. We hope that through this, we could also further strengthen the solidarity among organizations who put the youth at the forefront of their advocacy. We will be hearing from representatives of progressive youth organizations from Indonesia, Bolivia, Africa, the Philippines, Thailand, and Nepal in a panel discussion to learn more about the situation and perspective of rural youth member of indigenous community, the marginalized sector. Our panelists are given time to present to the following theme: neoliberal food system, agroecological practice, and alternative grassroots movement, COVID-19 impact on rural community and the youth, fascism, and security issues affecting the youth and their rights, and form of imperialist aggression in the global south. At the end of the panel discussion, an open forum will be conducted to allow insight and questions from our participants and guests. To follow is a short plenary discussion, summary point, build and present the recommendations and solution and call to action by the participants. On behalf of the Youth for Food Sovereignty, we would like to thank you all for making it to our activity today. We are excited to learn with you all, and we are one in the fight for genuine agrarian reform and radical transformation of our food system.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that. May we now call on Azra Saeed, Executive Director of Roots for Equity and Vice Chair of the International League of People's Struggle.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. Is it possible that my presentation is put on screen share? Or if you would like me to do it, I can do it too, but I think maybe you guys do it. Is it a problem, Mianka?
We're putting it up now.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, friends. As I said, I'm very happy to be here. I am not part of the youth anymore, as you can see, on the other end of the spectrum, actually. But it is a great honor to be speaking to the youth of the world, of many movements, of young people who are willing to take on the system and challenge imperialist forces in agriculture. So I will start with giving everybody a brief understanding of what is the Global People's Summit on Food Systems. And just before I go into it, I would like to let everybody know that there is now, the UN is also calling their food system the People's Summit. So don't be confused. We, the people, the real people, and not the corporates, are the ones who are putting up the Global People's Summit on Food Systems. Next slide, please. We know very well that that the global hunger crisis has reached very, very high levels. It was bad even before the pandemic, and in the past few years, it's become really problematic. We have now 155 million people who are now extremely lacking in food, are facing food insecurity. And as we know that the UN is saying, all the while, food and agriculture multinationals. So while we have all of this extreme hunger in the world, it's really, it's quite heart-wrenching, and it makes you very angry that while people are suffering, food and agriculture multinationals are bringing in, millions of dollars of profits, taken literally off from the flesh of the people. And these nations are coming in to grab our lands and to take away what we grow, what we produce. So basically, try and wrench control over our food resources and our raw materials. Next, please. So what is the UNFSS? The UN, everybody knows, is the United Nations. It is one of the global bodies where our government system sits, and is also one of the key organizations responsible for providing policy and guidance on food and agriculture. This year, the United Nations has announced the United Nations Food Systems Summit. And we know very well that this summit is not for the people. It is not to direct policy towards food sovereignty or towards the well-being of the people and the farmers, the peasants, the indigenous people, not at all. It is really, it has been hosted to allow corporate capture of basically the UN and particularly the food summit. So why are we saying this? Because the UN has basically put up, what's her name? I always forget her name. Anyway, this lady, she was from the an organization called AGRA, which is really led by the Melinda Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And she has now been appointed as the UN Food Summit envoy at the UN. And this is really the very first indication we have now know that big business is really running the UN food system. Next, please. Her name is Agnes Kalibata. I'm very sorry, but her name, it somehow my mind refuses to accept her. I've said her name many, many times, but it just does not stay there. So maybe there is a reason for it. Why are we so sure? I think it's quite important to know our facts. And the reason we believe that food and agriculture and the UN has been captured by the corporate sector is we have evidence that the United Nations and the World Economic Forum have signed a memorandum of understanding on strategic partnership framework for the 2030 agenda. All of you know that the World Economic Forum is actually a forum which hosts the G7 nations, the most powerful countries in the world, the richest and the most vulturistic in nature, the Americans, the Canadians, and the Japanese, and then nations from Europe, which is Italy and France, UK. These are the countries who run the World Economic Forum. And for them and the United Nations to come together and talk about building up strategic partnerships is really bad news for the people of the world, for the farmers, for the landless people, the women. And so we really feel that there is a big call for the people to unite and actually bring to the world's notice that it is we who actually are the ones and not corporations or the UN agencies like the Food and Agriculture Organization, which also has built relationships with CropLife to promote agriculture food systems. And again, I think everybody here would already know what CropLife is. It is one of the biggest corporations, I think Bayer, that has been now taking control of our agriculture. The people who are suffering from the extremely dangerous toxic use of pesticides and fertilizers, these are the ones who are now sitting at the United Nations Food Summit systems. Next, please. So what is the Global People's Summit? And what are we calling for? I think these words are well part and parcel of our daily lives, our solidarities, our struggles. We fight for justice, we fight for equity, and we fight for a healthy and sustainable food system, which should not be only there to support us today, but it has to be there in the coming generations, over the coming years. So the fight for just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems has never stopped and has never wavered, from local farming and indigenous communities standing up against land grabbing and destructive investment projects. These projects which take away our land. And so we know very well that we have to stand up ourselves to end hunger. The Global People's Summit on Food Systems, or People's Summit, provides an opportune venue to build on the struggles and assert our people's demands, our farmers' demands. Next, please. So what is just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems? How do we define it? How do we concretize? What do we mean by these words? They are that we first of all we put our life and a livelihood and our lands at the center of the transformation. You know, this is not like a vacation for us. The work we do on our lands is the very basis of our livelihoods. And so that is what we put first and foremost. An equitable food system upholds the people's right to development and sovereignty. Basically, what we mean is when we say sovereignty, we mean that it is the people who are responsible for the decision making. And it is the people who are responsible for writing down the policies and the systems and the mechanisms by which we will produce food for the world and for ourselves, based on justice, based on equitable distribution of food, such that the poorest and the weakest get the most, and the well-fed need not be in the first place. Healthy food systems reconnect the link between diversity in production and consumption. Food is not only for to be consumed. Food and food systems are an integral part of biodiversity, are an integral part of our planet. And what we produce and how we produce and how we consume and what we consume is based on nourishing and building the extremely complex biodiverse systems in which we live. And we very well know that the way it has been eroded is now falling on our heads through the extreme climate emergency, which is now there. Second, and the fourth point is sustainable food systems harmonize humanity's need and aspirations on our planetary boundaries so that we do not destroy the pillars of the earth, whether it is biodiversity, whether it is the pollution of water systems, whether it is the pollution of the lands and the biodiversity of the livestock and the animals, which are critical for us, and to monitor the kind of fossil fuels that we are using, which are burning up the environment and the planet. So it's a whole diverse set of issues that we set the people at this day, and all because of corporations and their greed for profit. Next, please. Hello, I want the next slide. Okay, and so the Global People's Summit on Food Systems, which which carries the hashtag Hungry for Change. Our aim is to make sure that the voices of the marginalized are at the very front of agenda setting, as I said earlier. It is the people's voices, it is the most marginalized, vulnerable groups, whether it is the indigenous people, the landless farmers, the women, the youth for sure. They are the ones who will demand and even implement what is most critical for our lives and livelihoods. Secondly, we also need to make sure that the power which the corporations are trying to, they already hold, and they are trying to strengthen their hold on the world's global systems, especially the United Nations. We challenge that. And so we expose the United Nations Food System Summits, which is going to be held later this month. So that is part of the campaign that we have been building up in the past months. And then it's not only a campaign. For us, it is certainly not a campaign. What we need is to have an actionable, pro-people, pro-planet vision of what we want. And it cannot just be a vision. It has to be practical steps that we need to implement politically, technically, and things which will certainly change the system to give back what has always been ours and which has been captured by the corporations. And so we need to radically transform our food systems. Next, please. So how do we do this? How do we achieve all this? How do we realize people's rights to adequate, safe, nutritious, and culturally appropriate food? All of this is basically under an umbrella called food sovereignty. We very well know that for everybody, for the word food sovereignty has been coined by landless farmers, by small farmers across the world. And the pillars of food sovereignty for us has been, first of all, adequate, safe food for everybody, and food that is appropriate for us. For us in Asia, rice is critical in many parts of Asia. It could be something else, but that is what we want. We do not want corporate, mass accumulated food, which is really just very toxic and bad for us. And after the very first basic right to food for everybody is, of course, is our right to livelihood, to decent livelihood. And that means upholding rural people's right to land, production, and resources, because that is where our strength is. That is what we need to have a decent life. And this is the core fight that we have amongst the rural communities, the right to land. And within the WTO, with taking away our right to seed and forest, we have had to fight for each and every part of the realm of reproductive resources that we need to grow nutritious, safe food. And then that is the next step. When we say safe and nutritious food, how do we do that? A very strong pillar, which has been the hallmark of food sovereignty ever since it has been introduced, is agroecology. Traditional agriculture, it is known as in many parts of Asia, which does not destroy the very systems which give us food. So we produce in a scientific manner such that our production does not harm biodiversity, does not harm other living fauna and flora, does not harm the human life itself, and doesn't destroy the planet Earth. And also, along with agroecology, we also talk about sustainability in distribution and consumption. It should not be that some people have the best that they can consume in quantity and quality, and the others go hungry both in quantity and quality. So, in essence, we are saying putting people's food sovereignty and democracy at the core of food and agriculture policies. Right now, there is no democracy. It is a dictatorial, imperialist system which is running a food and agriculture, which wants actually to just, in essence, kill us, to get rid of us, or to use us as slaves. And that we will not put up with at all. And that is why we are standing up to fight for a just and equitable system. Next, please. So what is, in essence, now I will just give you a brief intro on the Global People's Summit on Food Systems. This is really one of the broadest number of rural people, people's organizations, CSOs, and advocates to draw up a declaration for a radical transformation of the current food regimes toward just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems. So in the end, through all our activities that we have been doing, through all our movements, through our protests and mobilization that we have been doing over the past few months, we would like to come up with a declaration, which will be kind of our blueprint for how do we go forward. The summit will also develop a people's action plan. Its major outcome is to realize our goal. The People's Summit will be a 3-day plenary in September 2021, this month, both virtually and on ground. Of course, due to Corona, there is a lot of stuff which we cannot do anymore. So, but it is also a strength now because at the same time, we can actually unite everywhere in the world, while at the same time carrying out on-ground activities wherever it is possible. Each day of the plenary will be hosted by street conferences in one of the participating countries. So that basically means that there will be on-ground activities, and there is a very well-planned set of activities that are already in place. The third day of the plenary will be the last day of the People's Food Summit. And this is also one of the, for me, it's my most favorite day, because this is the day when we will be having coordinated global day of action for just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems to highlight the people's role and management. So in essence, in summary, we will have 3 days. Of the 3 days, the last day is the day when we will be holding a coordinated global action. Next, please. So then we have a list of activities. We have 3 types of activities. We have regional, sectoral, and national summits. And these are, some of them have already been held, and some of them are already on the agenda. These will ensure that the people's voices, especially the people who have been marginalized under the corporate imperialist agriculture policies, are at the very front, at the helm of the activities, and they will not just be a showpiece, in essence. It is these people who are, it is our rural communities, our farmers, our indigenous people who are the voices that will now be the basis for our plan of action. So it is going to be people-led participated research on food systems, which means that rural communities and movements, civil society have been, we all know that this kind of work cannot be done in like 3 days. Of course, this has been the work of many eras, of many years, decades, of the kind of solutions we have worked on and provided workable solutions to how we can get out of the current crisis that the imperialists have caused in our midst. The people-led participated research on food systems aim to consolidate and develop the concepts and demands of the people in transforming the current food systems. And so this is just not in the final days. I think the People's Coalition on Food Sovereignty, Asia Pacific Research Network, and a host of other organizations, Asia Pacific Pesticide Action Network, and there are others at country level, at regional levels, who have provided a lot of technical information on how do we develop sovereign systems. And then we have political organizations, we have social movements who have developed a realm of work showing that what does it mean to be people-led. It's not a word that NGOs throw around. It is a word which the political forces amongst the people hold very dear and know very well what it means to be people-led. And then we have campaigns to expose corporate capture of the UN Food System Summit. Some of these have already been ongoing, and like we already used that Hungry for Change hashtag. We have been doing a lot of stuff in terms of campaigns to expose, to oppose, and hopefully not only expose, but to topple the corporate capture of the UN food systems and other global governance mechanisms. We know very well that we have the IMF, we have the World Bank, and we have the WTO, the World Trade Organization. All these organizations are horrendous, grotesque, monstrous organizations, and we need to be very, very united. We need to be very, very consolidated to topple them. And there is no doubt that we will. I will just get off the subject for a second and talk about that today the American forces have left Afghanistan. So we see that defeat of imperialist systems is not impossible. It is very possible. And when we say we will topple the corporate corporations, the imperialist corporations, it's absolutely doable, and the people's strength is there. So next, please. I always get excited. I'm very sorry. So we have been having these various demonstrations under the name of Siege the Summit. I know very well that we have had physical protest in front of the Food and Agriculture Organization in Rome. We were able to mobilize many movements there, but especially the migrants. And so this is the kind of strength we have now. We can actually very quickly mobilize ourselves, not only in our own communities, in our own countries, but globally, because this is the kind of work that our organizations have been doing for the past 20 years or more than that for certain, and we are very much present on the ground. These are some of the pictures of the activities that have been happening around the world, and maybe we can go to the next one. So currently, I think there are 21 or 22 organizations which are part of the GPO or GPS organizing committee. Of course, PCFS has been leading us. Then we have PANAPI, the Asian Peasant Coalition, the Arab Group for the Protection of Nature. And now I'm in a quandary because if I don't say everybody's name, maybe somebody will be angry at me, but just think of my old age and I would rather conserve my energy to something more. But there are many of us here and I'm very proud. And all of us in Asia Pacific, around the globe, are very proud that the people's movements have come together so quickly to organize ourselves and do a 1,000% time better job than the UNFSS, which is still to happen. Thank you. Next, please. So these are basically the hashtags and symbols. I don't know much about this. All of this means something, like the hashtag Hungry for Change is being used for Twitter, our food systems we are using for Twitter. The young ones may be able to teach me more than I can tell you what we are doing, but these are the various ways that we are engaging online and in virtual space, apart from the physical activities that are happening. So I will finish with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Azra, for the introduction to the GPS and why we are holding this activity tonight. I think as youth, Azra has really succinctly put what is at stake for us and the urgent necessity of our participation in the struggle of farmers for land and the global anti-imperialist struggle for not just truly just food systems, but also national sovereignty and industrialization. So before we begin our panel discussion, we have a very nice cultural presentation to share with you all. We hope you would enjoy this. Thank you.
Nagsasalita ang lupa. Magsasalita ito para sa atin. Sa matagal na panahon, niyakap nito ang pag-aaruga ng ating mga kamay at pinagyabong ang mga binhing ating itinanim sa kanyang sinapupunan. Pero sino ang makikinig? Mabait ang lupa. Wala itong malay at hindi mapangmata. Hindi itinatanong kung sino tayo noong tayo ay dumating sa kanya. Kagaya natin, ang lupa ay walang malay sa kapangyarihang taglay ng isang pirasong papel na dala ng makapangyarihan. Mga taong may kakayahang pumatay, mga taong may kakayahang agawin sa atin ang lahat, ang ating asawa, ang ating anak. Kung nagsasalita ang lupa, magsasalita ito para sa atin. Sasabihin itong daang taon na ang nagdurugtong sa ating mga pusod sa kanyang sinapupunan. Ang ating pagpapagal ang nag-aruga sa kanya at ang kanyang mga supling ay bumubuhay sa atin. Tayo at ang lupa ay iisa. Makikinig ba silang mga nakahilata sa kastilyo ng ating pagpapakasakit? Sino ang nagsabi sa kanila na ang lupa, dahil nakasulat ito sa papel? Papel na dala ng makapangyarihan, mga taong may kakayahang pumatay, mga taong may kakayahang agawin sa atin, ang ating mga asawa, ang ating mga anak. Kung nagsasalita ang lupa, magsasalita ito para sa atin. Dahil tayo at ang lupa ay iisa. At tayo ngayon ay nagsasalita.
Thank you so much. That was Sinagbayan. Thank you for their beautiful cultural presentation. Sinagbayan is also an organization we work with in Youth for Food Sovereignty. So at this point, we are entering the panel discussion portion of our program. We have 6 confirmed panelists for tonight. We will be giving a brief introduction to their organization before their time to speak. But for now, we would like to acknowledge our audience and participants and members of the panel that are here. We have so many people. Thank you all. We are joined by representatives and speakers from Pembaru, Indonesia, the Southern Peasants Federation of Thailand, the Saver Schools Network from the Philippines, youth from the Instituto Politécnico Tomas Katari, or IPTK, from Bolivia, Welfare Togo of Togo, Africa, and the All Nepal Youth Peasants Federation Revolutionary Center. I think we're also warmly joined by people from the Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines, Earth Guardians, Youth Forum for the Protection of Human Rights based in India, the Pacific Youth based in Fiji, our comrades from Sulong UBC, Anak Bayan Japan, and of course, all our colleagues in the organizing committee for the Global People Summit. There's a lot more from all over the world. Thank you all so much for being here. Please be reminded that our participants are welcome to put their thoughts and insights and even questions in the chat if you have any for any of our panelists. So for our first panelist, Rahmat Hidayat of Pembaru, Indonesia, will get the ball rolling for the panel discussion. Again, may I remind everyone that you may use the interpretation feature for this event. Rahmat Hidayat is representing Pembaru. It is a mass organization based in Indonesia and the formation of Indonesian youth with the patriotic, democratic, and militant character. Rahmat, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. May we remind you to please speak slowly for our interpretation. Thank you.
Selamat pagi seluruh peserta workshop GPS. Saya akan menyampaikan pandangan tentang sistem pangan dunia dengan tema Pemuda berjuang untuk sistem pangan yang membebaskan dan menghancurkan kekerasan imperialis atas sistem pangan dunia. Pertama-tama, saya Rahmat Hidayat atas nama Pemuda Baru Indonesia dan YPS menyampaikan salut kepada seluruh kawan dari berbagai organisasi yang telah bekerja keras menyelenggarakan workshop pemuda ini. Terima kasih atas kesempatan yang diberikan untuk berbicara dan berbagai pandangan tentang sistem pangan dunia. Saya juga menyampaikan rasa hormat kepada seluruh pemuda di berbagai negeri dan peserta yang telah hadir dalam workshop ini. Dalam situasi pandemi COVID-19, di mana pemerintah di berbagai negeri memperketat kontrol atas berbagai kegiatan politik, ekonomi, dan sosial. Pemuda bersama kaum tani, buruh, perempuan, dan rakyat tertindas lainnya harus mampu menunjukkan perlawanan terbaiknya atas sistem yang menghisap dan menindas rakyat dunia. Sistem pangan dunia telah sepenuhnya berada dalam kekuasaan kapitalis monopoli internasional, baik dalam produksi pertanian, industri, perdagangan, dan keuangan. Kedaulatan bangsa dan kebebasan rakyat dalam menentukan produksi pangan untuk kebutuhan hidupnya sendiri. Dan memenuhi kebutuhan keseluruhan masyarakat terus ditindas. Produksi pertanian untuk keperluan bahan mentah industri dan pangan, untuk peternakan dan perikanan berorientasi ekspor di bawah kontrol perusahaan-perusahaan pangan raksasa internasional terus dipertahankan. Lembaga-lembaga keuangan dunia, badan perdagangan, institusi pertanian, dan badan pangan seperti keuangan dunia. Institusi pertanian dan badan pangan seperti World Bank, IMF, WTO, dan FAO bersama-sama dengan pemerintah dari berbagai negeri mempercepat berbagai kebijakan dan regulasi yang semakin memperkuat kekuasaan kapitalis monopoli internasional atas pangan. Di Indonesia, pemerintah mengerahkan kekuatan militer dan kepolisian dari tingkat nasional, lokal hingga desa-desa, ke pabrik-pabrik, olahan hasil pertanian, dan pangan. Berkedok menjaga stok nasional. Demi membuka peluang kota impor pangan dan ekspor bahan mentah pertanian yang lebih besar berkelanjutan. Di tengah pandemi COVID-19 ini, ekspor bahan mentah pertanian untuk industri imperialis dijaga sedemikian rupa tanpa mempedulikan protokol kesehatan. Kaum tani dan kelas buruh dipaksa melayani kepentingan imperialis melalui kaki tangannya, berjuasi besar komprador dan tuan tanah besar. Para berjuasi besar komprador dan tuan tanah besar di negeri agraris pra-industrial bekerja untuk mengontrol keseluruhan mata rantai pangan agar tidak tertandingi hingga sekarang. Negara dan pemerintah di berbagai negeri seperti Indonesia mendukung penuh operasi dan berharap penuh pada investasi perusahaan besar seperti Cargill, Caron Pokpan, Genus, Monsanto, DuPont, Syngenta, BC, BASF, Bayer, Yara, Nestle, Unilever, hingga retailer seperti Walmart sejak lama. Mereka berbagi kekuasaan atas pangan apapun di antara mereka sendiri. Di Indonesia, mereka disediakan apapun yang mereka perlukan, baik tanah, tenaga kerja buruh tani yang murah, hingga desakan pencabutan subsidi pertanian. Di antara perusahaan raksasa pertanian tersebut, bahkan ada yang betul-betul hanya mengambil keuntungan sangat besar dengan mengandalkan kekuasaan uang atau kredit produksi, perdagangan dan penjaminan pertanian, dan serta kertas berharga. Sistem seperti ini sangat jahat bagi mayoritas rakyat dunia. Laporan Oxfam tahun 2020 menunjukkan bahwa 2.150 miliarder dunia menguasai kekayaan alam lebih dari gabungan 4,6 miliar orang termiskin. Kekayaan dari 1% di antara miliarder 2 kali lipat lebih besar daripada 92% orang termiskin. World Bank melaporkan bahwa 11 dari 100 orang di dunia hidup di bawah garis kemiskinan ekstrim. Berdasarkan Badan PBB tahun 2020, rakyat yang mengalami kelaparan sebesar 768 juta atau meningkat 118 juta dibanding tahun 2019. Pengangguran dan kehilangan tak sanggup menembus utang dan mendapatkan makanan terlebih lagi di masa pandemi COVID-19 ini. Tak sedikit dari mereka justru adalah kaum tani dan pemuda yang memproduksi pangan, baik beras, gandum, daging, hingga sayur-sayuran, buah-buahan, hingga makanan olahan dari pabrik-pabrik. Akan tetapi, produksi mereka bukanlah untuk memenuhi kebutuhan hidupnya, melainkan melayani kepentingan perusahaan tuan tanah besar dan komprador yang tersebar di Afrika, Asia Pasifik, bahkan di Amerika dan Eropa, tempat di mana negeri imperialis dunia berada. Dengan berbagai cara, perusahaan raksasa internasional itu berusaha memproduksi pangan secara massal dan murahan, dengan mengkonsentrasikan seluruh kekuatan produktif di tangannya sendiri, agar laba tidak terbagi dan terus dialirkan kembali berupa kapital produktif dan hutang ke seluruh dunia. Sistem produksi pangan, sekalipun hasilnya berlimpah, tidak dapat dijangkau oleh kaum tani penggarap, termasuk oleh pemuda tani yang ambil bagian di dalamnya. Perlahan namun pasti, sistem produksi pangan yang ada karena berorientasi laba dan akumulasi atas kapital bagi imperialis dan produksi lebih di tangan tuan tanah. Kehidupan kaum tani dan pekerja upahan pertanian yang juga merupakan pemuda mengalami penderitaan sangat parah di berbagai negeri. Sendiri, di samping mereka yang sudah tidak memiliki lahan dan kapital sama sekali. Pemuda tak terpisahkan sama sekali dari seluruh kondisi ini. Secara khusus, corak produksi demikian telah memaksa pemuda hidup dalam keterbelakangan. Kerja keras mereka sama sekali tidak memberi jaminan pendidikan, peningkatan keterampilan dan kesehatan yang berkualitas yang sangat dibutuhkan dalam masa perkembangannya. Mayoritas mereka harus terus bekerja dengan alat kerja terbelakang, yang akhirnya menumpulkan kesadaran pengetahuan mereka atas kerja yang maju dan modern. Kita tidak boleh putus harapan dan segera ambil bagian dalam membangun sistem pangan yang membebaskan. Jauh sebelum sistem yang eksis saat ini, produksi dan pertukaran pangan dalam masyarakat adalah produksi bebas dan setara, serta adil bagi seluruh anggota komunitas di atas tanah komunal. Produksi pangan dilakukan bersama-sama untuk memenuhi keperluan hidup sesuai dengan kesediaan syarat-syarat alam dan kemampuan tenaga produktif setempat. Sementara kebutuhan pangan lainnya dihasilkan oleh masyarakat lain yang mungkin melakukan itu. Ini adalah sejarah yang dapat menjadi contoh untuk menggantikan sistem pangan di bawah keserakahan imperialis dan tuan tanah besar saat ini. Kaum pemuda harus berjuang untuk membangun pertanian pangan yang tetap berada di tangan rakyat, di tangan kaum tani sendiri. Seperti halnya dengan industri pangan dapat dihasilkan dari manufaktur yang bersandar pada kapital bangsa dan rakyat sendiri. Dalam keadaan krisis pangan yang sangat parah, Gerakan saling membantu di tengah kaum tani secara umum menemukan kemendesakannya. Kebijakan regulasi pertanian pangan yang lebih berpihak pada kaum tani, khususnya pemuda dan perempuan tani, terus kami perjuangkan. Dalam waktu bersamaan, menentang semua kebijakan dan regulasi yang bisa mempercepat dan memperluas pemberlakuan neoliberalisme di pertanian pangan yang tengah gencar-gencarnya. Setidaknya, dapat meringankan beban hidup dan tentu saja berbagai metode untuk meningkatkan pemahaman kaum tani sendiri atas sistem produksi penghisapan yang berkuasa. Di masa depan, pertanian besar pangan harus dapat diorganisasikan tanpa dominasi tuan tanah besar yang didikte oleh kapitalis monopoli internasional, para raksasa pangan dunia. Dan akhirnya, kami memberi catatan pada Indonesia bahwa Presiden Jokowi telah sukses menyelesaikan krisis pangan di Indonesia dalam buku Statistik Pangan di bawah arahan dari pelapor khusus FAO. Sekian dan terima kasih. Panjang umur rakyat, panjang umur pejuang pemuda, panjang umur solidaritas internasional.
Thank you so much, Ramat. Long live international solidarity. Next, we are joined by Ms. Sushada Sumali as the youth representative of Southern Peasants Federation of Thailand, or SPFT. SPFT is a network that has been working on campaigns for the right to agricultural land in Surat Thani province and other areas in the region. Ms. Sushada, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. We will be giving you a signal when you're nearing the end of the time. Please do speak slowly for our interpreter. Thank you. Yes, we can hear you. Okay, perhaps we can move on. Chad seems to be not available at the moment, but he's here. We see him. Let's move on to our next panelist. We will come back to Chad later on. For now, we will hear from a youth of the Instituto Politécnico Tomas Katari. We have Daniel Aguilar and Weimar Mancio. IPTK, or Instituto Politécnico Tomas Katari, is a private non-profit entity independent from the state, the church, political parties, economic companies, and foreign organizations established in Sucre, Bolivia in 1976. It defines its social task of generating human, economic, and sustainable development with ideological foundations based on service for the marginalized, commitment to sustainable national development, promotion of structural change in Bolivia, and adherence to fundamental values of solidarity, justice, well-being, participatory democracy, and respect for human rights. Danielle and Weimar, thank you so much for joining us. You have 10 minutes for your presentation. All right. That was Mineral 7 performing Corona. So I see Chad Bo. I think we can move to Chad now. Hi, Chad. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Yes. I have already introduced your organization, Saver Schools Network. We are ready to learn from you. You have 10 minutes. If needed, I will interrupt. I'm sorry. As you're nearing your time, you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So, hello, everyone. I am Chad Book from Save Our Schools Network. We are a network of LUMAD indigenous schools in the Philippines, in southern Philippines. So basically, LUMAD schools are community-built schools. They are built by the community to defend the ancestral lands of the indigenous peoples in southern Philippines. And one of the main aspects of LUMAD indigenous schools is its priority, is its focus on scientific and sustainable agriculture. So what we are doing so that we can protect and develop the ancestral domain of the LUMAD indigenous peoples is that we are teaching the young ones, the youth, to protect the environment by promoting agroecology, by promoting scientific and sustainable agriculture so that the communities will become self-reliant and self-sufficient. So a major part of the education of the LUMAD children are agriculture. So for example, the students have their own community school farm inside the campus. So students wake up at 5 a.m., 5 in the morning to do farm work. And we have that for 2 hours. And we also have agricultural classes inside the classroom where we learn the theories and apply those theories during their farm time. And students also tend their own gardens at the afternoon. Because of the agricultural education of the LUMAD schools, the communities also become more advanced in terms of their agricultural production. So since the students come from different indigenous communities, since the students come from different indigenous communities, since the students come from different indigenous communities, they teach their parents, they teach their own community members to do their agriculture work scientifically. So the students and after the students graduate from the schools, they become community development workers where they also help teach the children, the young ones, to do literacy, numeracy, and agriculture. So that's the main aspect of LUMAD schools. That's why LUMAD schools, LUMAD communities, that's why LUMAD okay. That's why LUMAD communities have become more advanced because of the LUMAD schools, and they have become more outspoken in terms of defending their ancestral domain, since a lot of mining companies are rearing after the LUMAD ancestral domains. They want mining companies, large foreign mining companies want to grab the ancestral domain of the LUMAD. They want agro-industrial companies to enter They want mining companies, a lot of them. And that is why LUMAD schools are also being targeted. So since the LUMAD schools defend, the ancestral domain, they teach the indigenous youth to protect their lands and their rights, the right to education, their right to land. Then we have become frequent target of the state to silence us, to quell our resistance against the foreign domination in the ancestral domain. So, for example, under this administration, all the Lumad schools built by the Lumad communities themselves, there are around 200 to 300 Lumad schools that were closed down by the administration of Duterte. And especially now with the terror law, a lot of Lumad teachers, Lumad leaders are facing trumped up charges, including me. We have also been arrested by the government, over trumped up charges because we have been resisting against these actions by the government. We have been exposing their human rights abuses against the Lumad people. But despite that, we continue to fight for the rights of the indigenous people. And through the Save Our Schools network, we have enjoined a lot of different organizations, different sectors, from local to national to international level, to gather support, to gather solidarity for the Lumad indigenous people in southern Mindanao. And that is why the Lumad people, despite all the attacks from the government, the Lumad people are still continuing to fight against state repression. And the Lumad people continues to stand for its ancestral domain, continue to fight against the terror law by the administration, the fascism, and we continue to stand in solidarity with all the youth, fighting for food sovereignty, fighting for self sufficiency, fighting for self-reliance across the globe. So international solidarity for all of us. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you all soon in our struggles.
Thank you so much, Chad. Okay. I think we can proceed now. We can go back to Miss Sushada.
Well, I'm Sushada from the Southern Peasant Federation of Thailand. As we know that neoliberal economic system is a collaboration between state and capitalists, especially in terms of state policy, and a way is for the capitalists to initiate and control market mechanism and prevent local groups and small-scale farmers not to prosper, could not be depend on their self-reliant, self-sufficiency practices, making the production costs high, where the production is devalued, the price is unstable, making the peasants are heavily in debt and could not leave the cycle of indebtedness. The neoliberal food system also affect ecosystem and interrupt human coexistence with nature. It push, it also pressure the food production to be in the model of monoculture. Interrupt the traditional way of production, resulting in unsustainable food production system. One of the important dimension of the neoliberal food system is the corporate capture on access to land and privatization system, especially the legalization to give priorities and access to corporate for corporate grab capture of land for agribusiness, especially the oil palm plantation. Again, the capitalists claim for legitimacy and devalue traditionalist food production. And again, for us, the youth, CPTPP or a regional free trade initiative, Pan-Pacific Partnership, it affects the peasants' income stability. The state could not initiate the tariff, the protective tariffs, have to bear the cost of production based on the monopoly and instability of income. Under this condition, the rural youth have been pushed away from the rural sector and become labor force in the corporate production line. It also affects the traditional knowledge and agricultural workforce to be diminished. And we have to struggle to progress traditional ways of food production. Us, the SPFT, realize that we need to make our youth understand the problem under the neoliberal food production system. We create programs, collective activities for our youth to participate and engage in traditional seed classrooms, agroecology, agroforestry plantation to learn about way of life, to have a sustained food production system installed in our community, to understand about the land acquisition under capitalist acquisition. At the moment, the Southern Peasant Federation of Thailand is initiated a farmer market, have a direct sales between our local consumers, the organic productions. We also have the political school on agroecology based on our experience and practices with our young farmers and young activists to accept and respect traditional way of production and criticize the pesticide use in the corporate food production system, and to be more responsible to use the local based production factors and make us independent from the neoliberal food production system. We also have a pilot agroecology plantation for our community to learn about alternative way of production. For our policy recommendations, first, Thailand need to have installed democracy. Currently, we are under autocracy, semi-dictatorial role that prevent us from free expression. We need to have rights to assembly, rights to organize group, to protect ourselves from effects from neoliberalism, production system and to preserve land for farmers and small-scale farmers. And third, we have to have law that protect monopoly of economy system and food system. ขอบคุณค่ะ. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Sushada. And I think wonderful presentation. I would like to call on now another panelist that we skipped a while ago, but who seems ready now. May we call on representatives from IPTK to give your 10-minute presentation.
Hola, bueno, muy buenos días a todos. Es un gusto para mí poder formar.
Hello, good day everyone. It's a pleasure for me to form part of this space for this dialogue. I am representative from IPTK, which is the Polytechnic Institute of Thomas Kater, which has been developing activities to benefit the most vulnerable participants of our society in Bolivia, above all in Sucre, in the north of Potosi, which is the region of Sucre. So for 45 years, they have been living in extreme poverty. 98% of people have been in a situation of extreme poverty. They've not been able to feed themselves. They haven't had water. It's been a really drastic situation. So in IPTK, we've firstly worked with food sovereignty in these places. And what we are trying to realize is to guarantee the food sovereignty of these people with projects which will we strengthen their capacity, the production capacity from the agricultural production of these zones in places where there isn't any water. We build water reserved or different projects to be able to give water to these communities who have water shortage or no access to water. So what we first do is we guarantee food sovereignty, and then after that, when people have the productive capacity, then we help them to trade, to sell their products, so they can sell their products. What's left over, they can sell, and then they can support themselves economically. So this is a form of support. The philosophy that we've been lately working on in IPTK this year is the idea of Kumara. Kumara is an Aymara word, which is the indigenous, one of the indigenous languages in Bolivia, Ecuador, Peru. And this word Kumara means looking at health in an integral way, in a wider way, thinking about how we should be healthy, but also making healthy everything that is our physical body, but also our mental self, our emotional self, and within our whole community, because we're not just talking about one person being healthy, but we have to talk about all your environment. Your community must be healthy as well. If they're sick, you can't be healthy. So the relationship that we have with nature, what we call Mother Earth, because it's our mother, it's a being which gives us in really everything that we have. It feeds us, or she feeds us, everything that nature gives us. So this is what we are doing in IPTK. We're really happy with the work that we're doing. We're really happy to be in this space with you today, to be able to talk to you. We are working in many different projects at the moment to support in this way. And we want capitalism really is destroying many places. So we are fighting, we are on our feet fighting in order to be able to progress, to move forward, to push us forward. There's many companies who come here and they exploit our small communities, rural communities, people who work daily, and it's really difficult for them. So we don't believe it's fair. What we are looking to do is to make sure that all these people have the possibility to be able to progress, to move forward for themselves. So our projects really is food sovereignty is the most important thing of our projects, so that they can really enter into this economic cycle, into the economic market. So thank you so much. Any question, please let me know. It's been lovely to share with you. I'm sorry that I had connection problems earlier, but I hope you've been able to hear me, and anything, please let me know. I can repeat anything I've said. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, that was very
Gracias.
Clear. Right now,
Bueno,
we're more than halfway through our panel discussion.
estamos a más de la mitad.
I'll show you and share with you another cultural
Quiero
presentation that we have.
Compartir una presentación cultural
That we have for your entertainment. It's from Sulong UBC, from our comrades in Canada. Please enjoy.
de Canadá.
Here's the future. It's in your palms. A sweet orb of sunlight burning your
Aquí
skin.
está el futuro, está en tu palma, un poco de sol que quema la piel.
Do you know the word of the people, the textbook of the masses, the lecture of the peasant farmer's rice?
Siento, no se puede traducir porque el texto va muy rápido aquí en la pantalla.
Touching down on the water, the seaplane, the bunka, the fishnet, the carabao arching its spine for its master's landlord. Read well the workers' hands, sewing 10,000 shirts, unloading the nation from cargo ships in the sweet winter heat. Listen well to the bunkalan fence holding back the sugar market siege. The farmer's fence says this land belongs to the people, and the land here is the future. It's in your palms, machete planted early and harvested each growing season by my love for you, Anak. Study it well.
All right. For our last two panelists, we will be hearing from Rolanda Ziaka, President of Welfare Togo. And the very last panelist, we will be hearing from our comrade Nirdosh Timalsina of the All Nepal Youth Peasants Federation Revolutionary Center. For now, we will hear first from the video presentation Rolanda Ziaka sent us. So Welfare Togo is an organization based in Togo, West Africa, which has been working to promote education, youth employment, the involvement of young people in sustainable development, access to health and social services, protection of the environment, and addressing poverty, reproductive health, and gender equity among young people in communities. Here's our video.
Hi all, my name is Rolanda Ziaka, President, Association Welfare from Lomé, Togo. My topic is about COVID-19 impact on rural communities and youth. The COVID-19 pandemic is affecting all parts of society and livelihood around the globe. The economic impact of COVID-19 spread quickly to rural areas. They are particularly vulnerable. Rural areas in the developing world, like my country, for example, are much less prepared to deal with the direct and indirect impacts. The recent study of FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, shows that the rural young people will be affected or impacted harder. This may cause further loss in human capital and this diminish or reduce economic opportunities in the future. So it's very important, this topic for us as young people. There is also very little knowledge or evidence in how to transform face-to-face, group-based and hands-on approaches which are very much used in agricultural training into online format that need to be used during the pandemic. For example, now I'm in Lome and I'm doing my presentation through online, or this summit is held in online, and we need all this training. How to have online format that need to be used during the pandemic, especially to cope with agricultural sector. That is a big question. Rural youth are being hit hard by the COVID-19 in respect of employment. I just take this example, employment. So the example is rural youth age from 15 to 17 are owing to the overall risk of increased poverty at a greater risk of exploitation of hazardous work, and thus child labor, especially in the agricultural sector. And this is a good example since we stay at home with this pandemic, the system of education most of the young people don't go to school. Some will continue the training through online platforms, but by staying at home, we are more in a risk for the exploitation of hazardous work, and this is happening. And this is a very dangerous thing to a young people. We need to think about it. Also, young entrepreneurs and youth cooperative will face similar problems because the overall difficult economic situation can make it harder for them to find resources and financing, while lacking the know-how to cope with ongoing difficult business conditions is a big issue for us as a young people. In Togo, for example, for us as a young organization, we are facing the same situation since COVID-19. And how to make rural youth voices heard during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is very difficult. Rural youth people's voices are not heard during different dialogues or processes or consultations because it is an emergency. They have to find a way to save the health. So we have to face the decisions, and usually the young people's voice are not heard in these processes. So the pandemic may limit even further the inclusion and potential contribution to COVID-19 related processes and the design of instruments to support them thereafter. We need to think about COVID-19 recovery. Post COVID-19 recovery, we are the new generation or the future generation. So this will affect us very hard, like the study of FAO said. So we need to act. We need to act. We need to work together. And this dialogue or discussion panel we have today is a good opportunity for us to exchange and to network in order to make heard the voices, the youth voices. It's very important. And I take this opportunity to thank you all for organizing this important event, for inviting my organization, and I'm very happy to participate in this panel and share with you this point of view of our organization. So it's very important during this COVID-19 pandemic period, the young people, we need to work together, to collaborate, to make strong our network so that our voices can be heard during the processes of COVID-19 recovery. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much to Welfare Togo. I think we have a representative from Welfare Togo in among our attendees. Okay. So for our last panelist, we will be hearing from our comrade Nirdosh T. Malsina again, chairman of All Nepo Youth Peasants Federation Revolutionary Center. This organization is an association of young peasants who are involved in agricultural production. It organizes productive, patriotic, democratic, and justice-loving Nepalese peasant youth who are the future of agriculture. The organization advocates for agrarian
Entonces,
revolution, revolutionary land reform, sustainable
reformas
agriculture,
revolucionarias
gender equality,
del
and
suelo.
climate justice. It
Entonces,
has over 70,000
desigualdades
members
y
growing
justicia
continuously
climática.
who come
Tiene más
from
de
the
7.000
Andes class,
miembros,
lower and middle class peasantry,
sobre
farm
todo de
laborers,
campesinos de clase media
pastorals,
baja,
and
a
peasants from indigenous,
trabajadores de la
Madesi,
tierra
and Dalit communities.
y también de
Comrade
las
Nirdosh,
comunidades
you have
Dalit.
10 minutes for your
10
presentation.
minutos para
We
su
will be
presentación.
giving you signals when you're reaching
Daremos
the
alguna
end.
señal
Thank
cuando
you.
se acerca al final de
Have the floor.
su...
Hello everyone.
Hola a todos.
म नेपालीबाट बोल्दैछु इङ्ग्लिस नो स्पिकिङ नेपाली स्पिकिङ
Voy a hablar, yo hablo nepalí, entonces voy a pasar al inglés, a la interpretación de inglés.
यहाँहरु सबैलाई धन्यवाद छ यहाँहरु सबैको राम्रो छ
Thank you very much to everyone. Your presentation, everyone's presentation is very good, and Nepal, while talking to Nepal, Nepal is in the substantial agriculture, and for the development and radical improvement of the Nepali society, and the imperialistic and autocratic production mechanism of the country has been a burden for the development and transformation of the Nepali agronomy. Similarly, according to Nepal, the agriculture production and production of the livestock is gradually growing. Mm. While talking to Nepal, being an agriculture country, it is being it is gradually becoming the importer of the agriculture products including cereals and pulses. Till date, and the production of the agriculture products and fisheries and livestock is in deficit, and the country is gradually becoming dependent on the other country for the agriculture products too. Overall agriculture system production and productivity. While we see the production and productivity of the country of the when considering agriculture, the main reason for the decreasing or this figure of worst figure of the country is due to the states failure towards in the agriculture policy, and in the center of the policy making is not concerned or is not aware of the agriculture and agriculture centered policy making is lacking in the country. So so many people of this country who want to live in their own country and labor expense their labor in their own country are not motivated to live in the country, and they are flying to another country for employment, and major youth population of the country is a migrant worker in either Gulf, Malaysia, or another country. Overall, agriculture sector is not in favor of the farmers or the peasants who see their future in the agriculture. The real people who are really engaged in the agriculture have their no land, and they have no land are in the capture of the landlords who are not who do not directly participate in the agriculture process and farming process. For those farmers, there is no land for the real agriculture workers. If the state provides the land to those agriculture workers, then definitely people will not have to suffer from the migration labor to abroad for their sustainability. Similarly, so many youth population who are working, who have engaged in their agriculture are not succeeding, because this sector is benefited by the person who have the links or power to the authority. Those who have not linked to the political powers or authority power, who have not relationship with the authorities and bureaucracy and politics, have been suffering, and really they are in the worst condition, and they have tears in their eyes because of in their engagement in agriculture. Hence, the major factor of production is which is the major factor of production. The youth people are day by day, every day, they are in line of going to abroad for employment. In this case, the state mechanism and state power is not also well concerned of this issue. And if the state is not also concerned of the few people who are engaged in production of agriculture, marketing the product of the agriculture, the agriculture workers are not getting proper payment or the fair payment of their products, and the state has is failed to facilitate those workers. And in some cases, in many cases, agricultural workers are compelled to throw their products in a waste instead of for goods in the market. This is the situation of the market of agricultural products in the country, in Nepal. While talking about the geopolitics or geo-condition of the country, in Nepal, the agriculture market is dominated by the Indian products. Although the Indian products are produced with lots of pesticides, pesticides, while Nepali products are more organic compared to Indian products, but the market is occupied by the Indian products. In Nepal, if the state could manage the agriculture system through the programs and policies in agriculture, then the youth population of the country is not will not have to go in the abroad, and they can be able to survive in their own country and exchange their valuable labor for the welfare of their own motherland. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. To everyone, we are aware there is some technical difficulties that we have encountered with interpretation. Thank you for our comrades in the chat who are assisting us during this time. So, and that's our panel. Again, thank you so much for your presentations, everyone. Before we head over to a more open discussion among our audience, participants and panelists, we'd like to share another cultural presentation, this time by Barangay Pesante Combo. Thank you. Okay? Oh. Okay, thank you so much. That was Barangay Pesante Combo. The song was in Filipino. Sadly, there was no English subtitles, but it is a song about the land struggle in the Philippines that is being waged by the peasant class, and how the farmers should have the rightful claim to the land they till and the land they work on. So it's a very good song. I wish next time we could give the English subtitles. Okay, so we are now at the part of the program where we are eager to hear now from our guests and participants in the audience. We are welcoming further inputs, contributions, and feedback or questions from our audience. If you would like me to call on you, please make use of the raise hand feature so our tech can see you. Otherwise, you may also use the chat function in the interest of time, because we are running out of time. We started a bit late and we encountered a lot of issues. But yeah, I would like to open this floor and call on our comrades from Youth Advocates for Climate Action Philippines, Anak Bayan Japan, Youth Forum for the Protection of Human Rights in India, and the Pacific Youth based in Fiji, among many others who are with us tonight. Please let us know when you would like to be called on. Yeah. Nina. Okay. We have Jay. Jay's hand is raised. Please use this time to introduce yourself also and your organization. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay. Isang maalab na pagbati mula sa Anak Bayan Japan Ad Hoc Organizing Group para sa lahat ng mga kabataan sa lahat ng panig ng daigdig. Tayo mga kabataan ng isa sa mga pinaka-vulnerable at direktang apektado ng krisis sa kalusugan na dulot ng pandemyang COVID-19. Sa pilitan tayong iginapos ng krisis na ito sa iba't ibang larangan at aspeto ng ating kabuhayan bilang kabataan. Kabilang na riyan ang pagsasarado ng ating mga paaralan at pagkukulong sa mga kabataan dahil sa mga restriksyon na ipinataw sa ating komunidad, subalit walang sapat na alternatibo at epektibong programa upang igarantiya hindi lamang ang ating kalusugan kundi na rin ang ating seguridad. Bago pa man sumabog ang pandemyang ito ay ramdam na natin ang krisis sa kabuhayan, tulad na lang ng mataas na gastusin sa pag-aaral at kakulangan ng atensyon ng pamahalaan upang itaas ang kalidad ng ating edukasyon. At dahil dito, mas binibigyan pansin ng ating pamahalaan ay ang edukasyon na nagsisilbi sa dikta at pakinabang ng mga dayuhan. Ito ay isa sa mga dahilan kung ba't napag-iiwanan ang batayang sa halip na paunlarin ang serbisyo para sa masang magsasaka, ay mas malaki pa ang pondong inilalaan ng gobyerno para sa pag-angkat ng mga produktibong agrikultural. At dahil dito ay lubhang lumalala ang ekonomiya ng ating sektor agrikultura, kung kaya't mas lalong nahihirapan ang ating lokal na industriya at mga magsasaka upang labanan ng krisis. At dahil lubog sa utang at walang sariling lupa na sasakahin, ay hindi nagkakaroon ng interes ang mga kabataan sa agrikultura, kung kaya't naiiwan na lamang ito sa sa tumatandang hanay ng ating magsasaka. Sa halip na sana ay maging produktibong pwersa magpapatakbo ng ating ekonomiya, maraming kabataan ang humahanap ng alternatibong kabuhayan sa ibang bansa na siyang dumadagdag sa milyon-milyon ng migranteng Pilipino sa ibang At sa halip na sana ay maging produktibong pwersang magpapatakbo ng ating ekonomiya, maraming kabataan ang humahanap ng alternatibong kabuhayan sa ibang bansa na siyang dumadagdag na sa milyon-milyon ng migranteng Pilipino sa ibang bansa. At imbes na gamot, pagkain at proteksyon, karahasan at mananakot ang tugon ng ating gobyerno. Kung kaya naman bilang mga kabataan ay may katungkulan tayong alamin at suriin ang nangyayari sa ating pinakamamahal na bayan. At muli, maraming salamat at mabuhay ang mga kabataang nag-oorganisa at lumalaban.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Jay is from the ad hoc committee of Anak Bayan, Japan. I think there was no interpretation, but he was saying that numbers of migrant workers from the Philippines abroad and scattering all over the world is increasing because primarily the government is not prioritizing the labor sector. And the fundamental problem of landlessness of farmers is also the reason why peasant youth, it's hard for the peasant youth to stay and even work on developing land cultivation. They are instead forced to seek employment and living wages elsewhere instead of inheriting local knowledge and cultures about working on the land. So Jay was saying that instead of the government addressing these fundamental problems of work and landlessness, it instead perpetuates this condition where it's forcing every Filipino to leave the country instead of working there. There's also lack of industrialization, much like many of our neighbors and of the neighbors we have in the global south. So thank you so much, Jay. We enjoyed your intervention and contribution to the discussion. Next, we have Mina Tamang. She's from Nepal. Could we have her?
मीनाजी तपाईँ बोल्न खोजे हो?
Please unmute, Mina.
No, her hand might be raised by mistake while using the mobile device.
Okay. Oh. Okay, it seems we lost Mina Tamang. We would like to invite once again maybe some organizations we forgot to mention or acknowledge, but hopefully not, among our attendees. We have maybe 10 more minutes for this open forum. Otherwise, we can proceed to the resolution building if there's no one else that would raise any questions or insights. Okay, let's move on. So at this point, we've reached the resolution building of our event. This will be led by Melo Cabello from the Youth for Food Sovereignty, where he will read the draft of the resolutions and calls to action for everyone. Again, I'm inviting the panelists and our participants from earlier who shared their thoughts to engage with us once more. We will be working on the draft together. This will be submitted to the Global People Summit on Food Systems as our list of recommendations, action plans, and resolutions. Melo, you have the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bianca, and thank you so much to the organizing committee. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to all our participants. Let me just share with you our draft resolution. And just like what Bianca said, this is just the draft resolution, and recommendations, suggestions, and your opinions are more than welcome to be heard in our resolution building this time around. So allow me to read our resolution. Rural Youth Demands for Food and Rights, Policy Recommendations. The Rural Youth Demands for Food and Rights are policy recommendations from rural youth organizations from different countries in the Global South for transforming food and agriculture systems. It is the result of the Rural Youth Siege the Summit, a panel discussion of rural youth organizations on August 31, 2021. The goal of the process is to create a consensus on policy analysis, demands, and action plans to mobilize the rural youth of the Global South in transforming the current food systems towards just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems. So these are the 9 draft demands. And then today, these demands can also serve as a baseline for policy recommendations in the short and medium term. So let's go ahead and dive deeper into these 9 demands, starting with the first one. Demand number 1, stop development aggression. Development projects should serve the interest of the rural youth and the entire community. Developers should respect and uphold free, prior, and informed consent. Impacts on indigenous people as well as on the environment should be taken into consideration. Development projects should be guided by continuous and regular consultation and coordination with the members of the community. Number 2, oppose corporate capture of food systems. Dismantle neoliberal policies and ensure a trade policy on the basis of equality, reciprocity, mutual benefit, and national interest. Make huge corporations liable to the destruction of food systems that has led to immeasurable tragedy among indigenous and rural youth. Demand 3, repeal neoliberal policies. Liberate rural sectors from World Trade Organization, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, prescriptions of liberalization, privatization, denationalization, and deregulation. The welfare of the rural youth should be one of the primary considerations in formulating government policies. The fourth demand, implement genuine reforms. Relocalize and democratize our food systems and agriculture. Implement a genuine agrarian reform program to end the decades-long landlessness of farmers and to ensure that the rural youth will be incentivized and encouraged to continue farming. The fifth demand, defend rural youth's right to education. Rural youth's right to education should be upheld, respected, and defended at all costs. Governments should fund and completely support the education of the country's youth, especially the most marginalized in the rural areas. Prioritize literacy programs across the country. Furthermore, support, enhance, and learn from alternative learning systems developed by marginalized peoples for education of the youth. Protect elders, teachers, and missionaries advocates, and volunteers who are promoting education and literacy in the countryside. The sixth demand, initiate capacity building projects for rural youth. Document, support, and allow the active participation of indigenous and rural youth in developing and determining capacity building projects that prioritizes their customs, local knowledge, agroecological practices, and empowerment. In hand with demands for the youth's right to education, implement and uphold practices that will not alienate the youth of the countryside from those in urban areas. Secure productive, healthy, and cooperative relations among the youth through joint projects that are grounded on nationalist and progressive values. The seventh demand, lift sanctions and cease all military aggressions. Strongly oppose all military presence in the countryside. Recognize, report, and condemn all forms of state aggression from micro to destructive scales brought on by wars in which state forces and hired militia participate. Promote and protect the right to peaceful living and security of all rural and indigenous peoples by ceasing all military aggressions and operations in productive and ancestral lands. Lift sanctions that afflict the everyday lives of rural youth who have a right to access basic needs free from intimidation. The eighth demand, encourage the youth to take up farming. Radical transformations of food systems and agriculture should be undertaken to encourage the youth to take up farming and be the next generation of farmers. Genuine reforms through free land distribution will secure land for the rural youth. Aside from land, other forms of state services should be given to empower and provide platforms for the youth in rural and national development. Empower and promote agroecological practices informed by the experiences of peasants and indigenous peoples. And then last but not the least, empower indigenous and rural youth. Indigenous and rural youth representation from the local to national level in policy making and implementation should also be ensured. The youth must have a say in the future of the planet, and their voice should be heard by those in power. Youth-led initiatives should be supported and the demands from the indigenous and rural youth amplified. So Bianca and all, these are all our 9 demands that will be included in the resolution to be submitted to the Global People's Summit. If our participants and panelists here have recommendations, suggestions, they are free to open their mic or raise their hand so that they will be recognized. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Melo. Actually, yes, we have received some good interventions already and contributions. We are taking note of these. Thank you so much for sending them. But in the interest of time, we will have to proceed to the next part of our program. Thank you to everyone who contributed to our resolutions, to our list of resolutions. However, we need to wrap up. For now, what we have decided on is to send our panelists a list of these resolutions, and we're giving you 5 days to email us and send us some feedback, and then we will consolidate it. The secretariat will consolidate this and then send you all the final form or final draft of this resolution before we do send it as YFS to the GPS. Please find our email here, but also we will send you these documents as needed. For now, I think we should have one more cultural performance. And then I would like to remind everyone that we are sending you again our calls. We hope that we could take a quick group picture with everyone here with us before we before we close. So for now, please enjoy this cultural presentation once more, and then solidarity messages from our comrades from Sulong UBC, and then a few closing remarks, or a short closing words or parting words from Zoe, from the Youth for Food Sovereignty.
Warm greetings from Sulong UBC to our friends and allies in the Youth for Food Sovereignty Network. Sulong is an affiliate organization of Anak Bayan located in Vancouver, which is a city on the west coast of Canada. As a national democratic organization of Filipino youth and students and allies, we stand in solidarity with peasant and Indigenous youth in our homeland, whose struggle for liberation from US imperialism, feudalism, and bureaucrat capitalism goes hand in hand with the struggle for land and food.
Vancouver is a city which occupies stolen Indigenous land and is surrounded by farmland mostly worked by migrant labor, especially migrant Filipino labor. The oppression of Indigenous peoples and the exploitation of migrant workers are deeply linked to the exploitation of peasants in the Philippines. In Vancouver, while bourgeois landowners buy multi-million-dollar houses, urban poor communities, Indigenous peoples living on their traditional lands, and migrant workers struggle to survive.
All of this is because of the global system of imperialism. Canadian and US imperialists directly profit from the flood of low-cost migrant labor out of the Philippines and other countries in the global south, caused by neoliberal economic policies and fascist governments like the US Duterte regime.
Rural youth in the Philippines face the same rotten system. The export-oriented economy of the Philippines sends food out of our homeland, out of the hands of the peasants who farm it and the fisher folk who catch it, while the import-dependent economy sends capital into the pockets of imperialist forces. It is this extractive cycle that forces our people to pay for the privilege of eating imported rice, while our own country is abundant with rice terraces.
It is clear that as long as agricultural production in the Philippines is ruled by foreign interests, peasant youth will continue to be exploited by feudal landlords and the comprador bourgeoisie. As long as peasant youth are exploited, they will rise up and struggle for the right to eat the food their hands have made.
Instead of answering youth's calls for the means to support their survival, the US Duterte regime in the Philippines instead responds with repression and violence towards youth organizing for jobs, social services, and rights. Just like the Philippines, in Canada, the state police have responded with surveillance, harassment, and brutality to Indigenous peoples struggling for their right to land and sovereignty.
Canadian Immigration Services threaten migrant farm workers with deportation when they struggle for their rights, even during a global pandemic when these essential workers have kept the country fed.
The Canadian state takes advantage of the Philippine labor export policy by exploiting migrant farm workers through excessive fees and unjust labor laws. In the Philippines, Indigenous and peasant youth face red tagging, occupation by the armed forces and civilian defense squads, warrantless arrest, and extrajudicial killings under the auspices of the NTF-ELCAC and the Anti-Terrorism Act, just for protecting their land, decrying human rights abuses, and struggling for a better future.
All youth have the right to eat and live with dignity. The future of our world is in the hands of the youth, and yet it is the youth, peasants, and workers who bear the brunt of a rotten imperialist system. The disparate impact of both the COVID-19 pandemic and the climate crisis fall hard on the youth living in remote rural locations and in coastal regions. Flooding, unseasonal temperatures, fires, and storms are the consequence of global imperialism overexploiting the lands which have fed our people for millennia.
This summer, the west coast of Canada faced historic high temperatures resulting in devastating fires and loss of life. The Philippines has experienced severe and unseasonal typhoons for many years. The impacts of these climate disasters will only grow more urgent as long as the global system of imperialism continues to run unchecked.
When youth today say that we are hungry for change, we are expressing our collective yearning for a future where land belongs to the tillers, where farmers and fisherfolk no longer go hungry, and where our people can sustain themselves from the bounty of our own land.
Simply put, there is no sustainable future for humanity without the complete and total rejection of neoliberalism and imperialist exploitation.
For this reason, youth at home and abroad must struggle and win, not only for ourselves and our families, but for the survival of our planet and for future generations.
Fight today so that we may usher in a brighter tomorrow.
Sumo ang kabataan!
Good evening to each and every one of you. We often hear that the youth is the hope of our future. However, we have seen and we have heard through the sharings that we had today how the youth, which mostly belong to the rural communities, continue to suffer firsthand. Landlessness, rural underdevelopment, the ravaging of militarization, state repression, development aggression, and ultimately neoliberal globalization, which have led to the weakening of the economy of the countries they belong to, as well as these countries experiencing food insecurity, which have a direct effect on the poorest sectors of the society. Because of this, the youth experience significantly less effect on the poorest sectors of the society, which became all the more challenging. The youth experience significantly less effect on the poorest sectors of the society, either as farmers or all the more challenging. The youth experience significantly less effect. They take up jobs which are essentially not fit for their age and physical maturity. These have led to the prevalence of hunger, undernutrition, and starvation. The lack of access to social services, which include the lack of access to healthcare or complete and proper health services. They are also directly suffering from the impacts of environmental degradation brought about by the continued neoliberal globalization and the continued corporatization of agriculture. And all these have been exacerbated by the pandemic. These realities establish the necessity of the rural youth to stand up and speak up, to become part of the movement in creating a better society. We have seen throughout history how essential the youth's participation is in forging change in our society. It is essential for us to take part in creating our future. And this call is not only for the rural youth, but as well as to all the youth out there. Because these realities, although directly impacting the rural youth and the rural population, also affects entire nations and the world as a whole. Together, let us stand with our farmers, with the rural youth, the marginalized sectors of the society, and engage others in bringing forward our call for genuine reforms in the society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zoe. May we now invite everyone to turn on their devices, cameras, and we will be taking our group picture with holding up our calls as part of the event.
We're going to promote everyone. Please just give us a minute.
Yeah, please hold on.
Okay, as we are waiting for our tech to assign everyone or to promote everyone as a participant, we'd like to thank everyone again for joining us. We experienced a lot of tech issues, but we persevered and we're here. So thank you for bearing with us and also for giving your time. We know we have extended quite a bit. But we're nearly there. So thank you again to our comrades for sending their videos. Thank you for the live interpreters. Thank you for the panelists. Thank you for also the people who shared their energies and their resources in the chat when we were experiencing tech issues with the interpretation. And our viewers here and on Facebook. We hope you could share this event among your circles and encourage the youth sectors in your communities or countries to join YFS and empower the peasant youth. Thank you so much. I think, are we good?
Hello, everyone. We request you all to please open your cameras. Okay. Waiting for everyone to please turn on their cameras. Okay. There.
Thank you.
Oh, please open your cameras so that we can take a good screenshot. Okay. Just a moment. Lumalabas na iba. Okay. I'm going to count to 3, huh? For the first group, 1, 2, 3. Please raise your fist. Again, 1, 2, 3. Okay, for the next group, again, please open your cameras. Smile, raise your fist. And then another one. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This ends our event. We hope to see you all again in the streets or online. Long live international solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Long live international solidarity.
Thank you so much. Long live International Youth Peasant Solidarity.
Chao, chao, un gusto. Saludos cordiales desde Bolivia.
Gracias.
Thank you, everyone. Requesting the core team